Our next speaker is also a serial entrepreneur, a cutting-edge disruptor in his field. The disruption that this company has made is that they've actually created a genome for under $99. So if you can just imagine being able to download and decode your genome, the possibilities are endless. And it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to invite Mirza Cifric to the stage, please, from Veritas Genetics. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone. All right, it's great to be back in Madrid. I used to live here a little while back. It's been many years. It's fantastic to come back here and find a thriving entrepreneurial community and lots of awesome startups. So I am here to talk to you about the tipping point in genomics and the $1,000 genome, but I'm going to actually start about 100 years back and talk a little bit about what did healthcare look like 100 years ago and what were the challenges that we all faced. And a couple of interesting fun facts. So about 100 years ago, up to 3 of every 10 children would die before the age of 5. Something as simple as measles would kill 1 million people a year. Hundreds of thousands of kids were paralyzed with polio. The flu, do you know anybody that's died from flu recently? The flu killed, in 2 years after the First World War, up to 10 times as many people as the entire war itself. We faced a tremendous crisis with infectious diseases, and we fought that with a tremendous amount of knowledge and fortitude by scientists to create preventive strategies and treatment strategies, antibiotics specifically, and saved millions of lives in the process. 100 years ago, or in the mid-1800s, a woman had a 32% chance of dying after giving birth in a hospital. We made tremendous strides in progress, and you guys probably know, and you should be thankful for it. Most of us are in this room because of those developments. I'm sure most of us here are vaccinated, and through the invention of vaccines and use of vaccines, we've pretty much eradicated those diseases. But we did it with having a certain amount of knowledge about those infectious diseases that we lack today in what we call the modern diseases. So it's not anymore pneumonia, tuberculosis, and infectious diarrhea that's killing millions of people. The leading causes of death today are cancer, heart disease, and diabetes in most of the modern world. So how are we going to combat these modern diseases? I think first and foremost, we need to generate a certain amount of knowledge about these diseases to be able to understand them. And understand them not only at a time point, but understand their progression, how they develop over long periods of time, understand how they change and mutate, evade things that we come up with. And so in 2001, many years before that, some of the greatest scientists in the world and one of the most successful public and private partnerships, companies and institutions got together and sequenced the first human genome for a cool price of $3 billion. It was an incomplete genome, but nonetheless a milestone in human history for $3 billion. And today, Veritas Genetics will sequence your entire genome for only $1 billion. No, I'm kidding. It's only $1,000. Anybody would like to pay $1 billion for their genome? See me backstage. So the map of the human genome created a revolution in genomic medicine, revolution in understanding of many diseases. But what happened over the next 15 years is nothing short of an entrepreneurial miracle. Entrepreneurs got together, they pooled their resources. They created companies, they funded companies, they ran them into the ground, rebirthed them, funded them, sold them, resold them, created unicorns, shot unicorns. And the process of that is nothing less than phenomenal, that the price of a whole human genome during this period went down from $3 billion to $1,000. Now just think about that for a second. A factor of over a million in price reduction. Nothing in the history so far has reduced in price that rapidly in that proportion. And this is creating a tremendous amount of opportunities. What it's creating mostly is opportunities to generate new knowledge that we can apply to cancer, the knowledge we can apply to diabetes, knowledge we can apply to heart disease. But we also have to take what we learned from the early 1900s and the infectious disease era. We have to apply not just treatment, but also prevention. These two things are both necessary to make a significant enough impact. Because as far as I'm concerned, despite tremendous progress in cancer and diabetes and heart disease, it's just not fast enough for me. It's not fast enough for my kids, not fast enough for my grandkids once I have them. Not that old, so. We're treating sick people, we're doing the best we can, we're fighting, the cancer's fighting back, and we're making strides, but we can do a lot better. What we can do, most importantly, what I'm here to talk to you about, is create a body of knowledge that will move the needle tremendously. A body of knowledge that we should contribute back to the society because it is ours, and a body of knowledge that we at Veritas started to create by releasing the first through $1,000 genome. And by that I mean a genome that is both sequenced, analyzed, interpreted to the best we can today with the amount of information and the data we have today. That has been the mission of the company, and it's been the mission of our founders. The company was founded by me and some other much smarter people, three of which are or were members of the Personal Genome Project at Harvard Medical School, which over the last 10 years is a very unique project created to sequence as many people as possible in hope that they would agree to contribute their genome to scientific research. So we sat around and we said, you know, what was the cause of a million X reduction in the genome cost reduction? It was not until companies got involved, until entrepreneurs got involved and founded companies and took the disruptive innovation really by the horns. So we need to do the same thing if we're going to create this phenomenal knowledge base. And last October, we launched the first $1,000 Genome Pilot. We really constrained it only to the members of the Personal Genome Project because they are early adopters and they're willing to go through the pain of early adoption that comes with that. And we very rapidly sequenced more genomes than they did a number of years prior. And we did this by giving people an opportunity to pay for it, to get information from it, and then agree to contribute their genomes to research. So we are at this phenomenal time point in our lives that a genome is accessible at $1,000, and we call this concept democratization of genetic testing. But as you guys all know, making something cheap doesn't mean everybody's going to buy it. I heard a couple of presentations before me talking about apps and millions of apps and so forth. We all have the same challenges. Again, making something cheap doesn't mean adoption is going to be there, and that's what democratization is about. So let's try to really figure out what democratization means. I looked to some much smarter people, and this is what I discovered, that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, said that democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choices are prepared to choose wisely. So this is a timely and important thing for Americans in the audience and back home. Choose wisely. Because the real safeguard of democracy, therefore, is education. So You know, this is a quote from an old guy who's not around anymore, so I look for a more contemporary big thinker, and I turned to Jon Stewart. I'm sorry, this is a very American point of view to the world. I'm sure you have your own comedian in Spain we could use. And he said, you know, you have to remember one thing about the will of the people. It wasn't that long ago that we were swept away by the Macarena. You really have to think about what is the will of the people and which way is going to take us. So if we truly want to generate what I'm here to talk to you about, the most powerful knowledge base of human biology ever created, we have to work with the people. We have to exchange value with the people, give them something back. So all of you guys are thinking in the back of your head, okay, fine, so what do I get out of this genome thing? You're going to tell me when I'm going to die, or what I'm going to die from, or you're going to tell me things I don't want to know. And we can talk a lot about that, but as a community, that is the crux of the problem. We need to focus and talk with the individuals and engage them in the reasons why they should get their genome done. But one very simple reason should be enough, that having your genome sequenced and the information contributed back to research will make a difference. It's probably the best investment all of us could make. So let me give you an idea of the opportunity this really presents. So since sequencing of the human genome in 2001, we've done maybe a couple 100,000 genomes, and those were funded and paid for by scientific research, NIH budget, and so forth. And those focused on sequencing usually sick people with particular diseases and trying to figure out what in their genetics is driving those diseases. And we are super thankful to have that information, because that is what gives us the body of knowledge to interpret your genome today and say what we know about it. You know, it's a full circle. We cannot tell you something about your genome that someone hasn't already thought about, confirmed, and scientifically validated. Therefore, we're working with a limited body of knowledge. But the more people get their genomes done, the more knowledge we're going to have, and the more we're going to be able to contribute to the guys after us. That's one thing. And the other thing is, you should think about your whole genome as an asset for life. Because if we only know this much today, once we sequence your genome and we have this digital data, and I know there's a lot of technology people here in the audience and at the conference, it is relatively inexpensive for us to go back and inquire into that data and say, what do we have that's new? What's changed? You may think about your genome as something that is relevant to you now because you're going to have children and you're very interested in your carrier status. Do you carry, you're not affected, but you carry hundreds of genetic diseases, which also, if your reproductive partner carries, there's a real 1 in 4 chance that a child will be affected with that genetic disease. You might want to not know about things that are going to happen later in your life, late onset. But as you get older, you will want to know more, so you can always go back to your genome once it's been digitized. Let me tell you about the amount of information that this has the possibility of generating for the society, for the human race, really. So today, I looked up some of these facts. Just Twitter, with their little 3 kilobyte tweets, is generating about 1 petabyte of information a year. Tiny little tweets. YouTube uploads 300 to 400 hours of video every minute or every second. I don't even know. Don't fact check it. It's changing all the time. And they, at the rate of expansion of YouTube videos, we're going to be at zettabytes of information within the next 15 years. Facebook photos and videos and so forth, even more so. Hard to count, especially after this conference. I'm sure there was a couple of more terabytes contributed in the last 12 hours. And so this is very powerful information generated by you, generated by all of us, mostly for entertainment value and mostly for, you know, benefits of communication and so forth. And it's brought people together and brought people apart. It's all arguable. But imagine if we put that amount of effort, that amount of information into generating the human genome data. And not just the genome, but all the other things about our human biology. But we have to start somewhere. The genome is the baseline. So by the projections from where we stand today, if we continue to generate human genome data at the rate of the Moore's law, right? Doubling every 18 months, we will far exceed the amount of YouTube videos in only 15 years. If we keep generating human genomes at the rate that we have so far, which is a pretty steep curve, we will exceed that by a factor of 10. I have no idea where we're going to store all this information. But this is, Clayton Christensen's definition of disruptive innovation, right? It's discontinuity from a totally different market. We are able to store human genomes inexpensively thanks to Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Next great technology company funded by Incube Ventures in Silicon Valley and others. They are driving the cost down because they're exchanging value with the consumer at a different price point. We get the benefit of that. Now it's possible. This is why we can do a genome for $1,000. This is why we can store millions of genomes and will be able to store millions of genomes. So, genome is not the answer to everything, however. Let's just be very clear. Just like a human height is a factor of both genetics, but also nutrition and exercise, many of our diseases are affected by many other aspects, not just our genetics. We always say that genes plus the environment create a trait such as height or a disease. And I want you to know that we are expanding the use of this tremendous and powerful technology in ways that has not been possible at all. So one of the things we're doing here at South Summit is we're sequencing the microbiome. Now, if you're amazed by what the genome does, the whole concept of the microbiome is going to blow your mind. So it turns out we're only 10% human. If you look at the number of cells, microbial cells and human cells, we're about 90% microbes. Now, thank God, they're tiny, tiny little cells. Don't be worried. They're tiny little cells, and hence the number. But the microbiome in our body weighs somewhere between 1 and 2 kilos with an average person. That's how many bacteria we're living with. And it used to be really hard to study those bacteria. And we have known for many, many years that these bacteria play a tremendous and important role in our health. They play a tremendous and an important role in our digestion and therefore obesity, in how they digest certain foods, how they produce certain chemicals which are then incorporated in our brains and could be causative of a number of neurological conditions. Now, for those who understand microbiology, growing and culturing this bacteria is incredibly hard and incredibly complicated. A lot of them don't want to grow in the presence of oxygen, and therefore they're not really subject to an easy study until next-gen sequencing came. So today, very inexpensively, for a couple $100, we take the fecal sample, or any sample, skin biome, for example, just a little swab, or right off of your iPhone, which is full of bacteria, by the way. Enjoy. More bacteria there than on most other places. And we just simply, non-discriminately, sequence the DNA and the RNA, and we can see all the various species that are present there for only a couple $100. This has given rise to a whole entire new economy in biotechnology. A number of companies are being funded to discover treatments based on the microbiome research. So we're doing something cool and interesting because this is a cool and an interesting town and a venue. We're doing what we call the first social biome here at South Summit. So we have a little booth set up outside. So what we're doing is we have selectively chosen a number of places in the venue, and we are taking the samples of the microbiome. We won't tell you where it is, but it's probably door handles and other cool, gross places. And we're going to do that over a number of days during the conference. You know, what we want to find out is getting people together to share ideas and concepts, business cards, networks, connections, and so forth, has now a biological dimension to it. we're also sharing our microbiome. We are very curious to see how we'll bring in all these phenomenal and interesting people together, influence the exchange of the microbiota between the various people. So go to one of our booths and sign up to do a microbiome, and they'll swab your phone once a day for 3 days, and we're going to pull together and publish this data to show you how your microbiome changed over just a short period of 3 days. This is interesting and potentially will lead some interesting conclusions scientifically, but it is the kind of data that we are now able to generate extremely inexpensively that leads us to more and more information about our human biology. Now, I'm going to make a very important statement about this data. Everybody's after this data. Everybody wants to be at the center of your healthcare going forward. If you read Tim Cook's interview, you'll see that life sciences and personalized health is right in the crosshairs of people like Apple and the rest of the people in Silicon Valley. But I would like to say that the people and the person at the center of healthcare should be you. This is why, our tagline of our company is to live in the know. We're in the business of giving you the information so you can live in the know. You can stop guessing about your health choices that you're making every day. So we will be integrating all kinds of things about your human biology in this information we're going to provide to you. And we're going to do it over your lifetime. We're going to start probably in the next 5 to 10 years, when technologically we're ready to do it now, when the community is ready, when the bioethicists are ready, when the doctors all need to be part of this conversation. When we are ready, we will be sequencing every newborn. Most people, even those that disagree with this idea, would say that it's a question of when, not if. So the key thing here is that a number of people who are after the idea of being at the center of this have a different agenda and a different approach than we do at Veritas. Because remember, our founding roots are the Personal Genome Project and sharing and contributing this data to the scientific community. So we have resolutely decided that we will contribute this data to the community. We are not going to hoard it, hold it to ourselves, sell it off to the pharmaceutical companies. We are going to create a place that is a trusted place for you to get and understand your genetics, to monitor your progression of your genome, of your microbiome, of various aspects of your health. And then with your choice, you will be able to contribute that information to scientific research, anonymized, et cetera. That's our goal, that's our mission. Other folks are choosing to control the data, use it for their own benefit. I don't agree with that, and we've chosen a very different direction. So I think it's for that and a few other reasons that, a relatively young company like Veritas was, named top 50 smartest companies by MIT Tech Review earlier this summer. There's a number of people in this space. I think we're really trying to lead, and we're trying to lead in a responsible way, not just by disrupting the price point, disrupting with technology, but bringing people into the conversation and doing it responsibly. I don't think you can build a business, a startup, or anything anymore if you're not absolutely transparent. There's no more big bad companies, bureaucracy, and hiding behind things. It takes about 15 seconds to find out what people are up to. And this kind of a trust and a relationship, especially with millennials and this crowd and so forth, it's just a fundamental way to how to build a business differently going forward. But the most important thing we need to do to democratize genetic testing is we need to get people to understand we got to back away, we got to completely change this paradigm that has been ingrained in our minds. And we have the opportunity now that we're at this tipping point that, we are healthy, and then, boom, next day you're sick. But people go and have their annual exam and check up and die from a heart attack the next day. Not acceptable. Every single one of us in this room thinks we're healthier than the person right next to them. The reality is that we can always be healthier. That health to sickness is not a transition that happens in a day. It happens over a long period of time. This is why knowing and understanding your risks and living in the know and having the information and the feedback is tremendously important and valuable. So, this is why when we launched our $1,000 genome, we labored tremendously in how we present this information to the people, how we engage them to use it. Not just look at the report and say, oh, okay, very interesting, I did that 23 and something thing and told me something about my ancestry, blah, blah, blah. This is just like, you know, a bigger version of that. No, this is an asset for life. The information contained in your genome continues to evolve. The genome does not, but the information, how we interpret it and what we do with it continuously does. So we did a few small things. I'm not here to advertise a genome. I'm only mentioning it because it is such a momentous step in both the society, and it's a function and a possibility only of entrepreneurship together with science. We know we need to give people actions, not just data. You're 17% at risk for this, and good luck. No, what am I going to do? What should I do next? Who should I talk to next? We know that people want to talk to people. They don't want to stare at a blank screen with a bunch of numbers and information. So we built video chat genetic counseling. We showed this to some of our colleagues early on. It was video chat. I mean, guys, it's 2016. This is how people communicate. If they want to chat, if they want to text with a genetic counselor, let's give it to them. You want to democratize genomic testing? This is democratizing genomic testing. Not just making it cheap, making it accessible, deliver it to the people in the way they want to see it. We decided that some aspects of this, and in the future many more, so conservatively, some aspect of this should be shared. So if you know about your fitness genetics, how you should exercise, if you know something about your nutrition, maybe you want to just share it with your personal trainer. Yeah, I know not everybody has a personal trainer, but maybe you'll share it with your gym. Maybe next time you walk in and get a protein shake, it will be customized to your genetics, because you're very different from your brother or sister, let alone from two strangers in the line buying a shake. You metabolize things differently, you do it differently, and you don't know. Every time you do these things, every time you take these steps, you are experimenting and hoping for the best outcome. There's a million diets out there, and some are clearly better for people than others, but the question is, what is truly right for you? They can only be truly answered if we understand your genetics and your genome, and not just once, but as it evolves. Something as simple as news. We are all overwhelmed with information. Tweets, Instagram, news of all sorts, and we cannot digest it all. You know, today it's, you know, Advil, you know, it's good. Tomorrow it's bad, and chocolates are good. Chocolates, I can't keep track of it. I actually don't know what to pay attention to. Well, I should pay attention to the things that matter to me because of my genetics, and things that will matter to me in my future, or that matter to me because of my children, because I may have or will have passed certain traits to my children. So, as simple as providing a feed of information and news to people based on their genetics and what really should matter to them. We know that a lot of what we do with the clinical side of these things is not ready for average people to consume, even if they have access to a video chat with a genetic counselor, that ultimately they will go to their doctors. So we've partnered with a consortium of phenomenal hospitals in the US where if we find something really clinically actionable and urgent, then there is a continuity and access to a doctor who both understands genetics and his or her specialty. We find varying degrees of knowledge by primary cares and other doctors about genetics. And rather than just saying they don't know what they're talking about and we do, no, we simply need to give them the information to enable them. In the US, a doctor only has 5 to 10 minutes to spend with a patient. That's fine. Let's use modern technology. Let's use disruption created by Facebook and WhatsApp and you name it to get to the efficiencies that they can get that information incorporated and do something about your health. In our genome, we test for over 500 known drugs which are out there, prescribed every day, for which certain people can have really bad reactions to. Again, live in a no, or the alternative. this is important, valuable information to your doctor. They might not know what to do with a 17% risk of rheumatoid arthritis for a 30-year-old person, but they'll certainly know if they shouldn't prescribe a certain medication because it can have a really bad reaction for you. We have to work with the medical community. We need to enable them. We need to bring the tools. We need to unlock this genome. And then what we need to do with all this phenomenal data is contribute it back to the society, to the scientists, so that they can create, remember that full circle concept that we can tell you what we know about your genome today because of the information that has been created by the scientists today. We need to give them more data. We need to give them those zettabytes of information. Think about it, zettabytes of information back so they can do research faster for the sake of ourselves, for the sake of our children, grandchildren. And we intend to do that, and we are doing that from the very, very beginning. We need to change this paradigm of healthy versus sick so people can understand that they have now access to the information to improve their health and outcome all along the way. And if we are not successful, we can always do the Macarena. Thank you very much.